Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered how to put the pieces back together after facing really tough times? Especially when you've had to leave everything behind. Well, today we're diving into a fascinating new framework that tries to map out exactly that. It is called the Multilayered Trauma and Identity Integration Framework, or MTIIF for short, developed by Valentyna Petrenko. So what exactly is MTIIF? Imagine you've gone through something incredibly difficult like complex trauma. This isn't just a single bad event, but often a series of experiences that shake you to your core. And then imagine you've had to flee your home, becoming a forced migrant. This adds a whole other layer of stress and uncertainty to an already heavy burden. MTIIF is like a detailed map for therapists to help people navigate this incredibly complex journey. It doesn't invent new treatments, but it organizes existing, proven ones like EMDR, schema therapy, and CBT into a smart sequence. The core idea behind MTIIF is that our distress isn't just one thing. It shows up in 5 interconnected layers. First, there's the neurobiological layer where your body's alarm system might be stuck in overdrive. Think of that constant feeling of being on edge. Then there's the existential layer where your sense of purpose and your life story feel broken or your future seems lost. Next is the identity-related layer, where you might feel shame, self-doubt, and a sense of being less than you once were. The fourth layer is social adaptive, dealing with practical challenges like language barriers, navigating new systems, and feeling out of place in society. Finally, there is the relational layer, involving disrupted connections with loved ones and the pain of isolation. MTIIF says these layers all interact, and you need to understand this interaction to truly heal. What makes MTIIF really stand out are 4 key ideas. They're like the guiding principles for making clinical decisions. The first is the layer burden profile, or LBP. Think of it as a quick check in at the start of every session. It asks which of these 5 layers is hurting the most right now, and through which layer can we best connect with the person today. It's not about diagnosing, but about finding the most accessible entry point for healing in that moment. The second concept is called threshold-governed progression. This is all about timing. It means we don't just move on to the next step because a certain amount of time has passed. Instead, we wait until the person reaches a specific point of readiness. For example, you can't really process deep trauma if your nervous system is still in high alert. So stabilization has to come first. There are specific thresholds that indicate readiness for the next phase of work. This is crucial to avoid overwhelming someone and actually causing more harm. The third signature concept is the relational entry point, or REP. This is particularly powerful when thinking about group therapy. The idea here is that for many people, especially those who have experienced profound isolation, feeling accepted in a safe group setting before diving into deep trauma processing can be a game changer. It suggests that reducing loneliness and shame through connection is often the first step rather than the outcome. It's like saying, let's build a foundation of belonging first, and then we can start building on top of that. This is grounded in solid research, suggesting that our brains are wired for social connection and healing happens best when that need is met. And finally, the fourth concept is the Agency Restoration Index, or ARI. This is how we measure real recovery. It is not just about reducing symptoms like anxiety or depression, but about regaining your ability to act purposefully in your own life. ARI looks at 3 markers: initiation, planning, and tolerance of uncertainty. It is about moving from being stuck to being able to start things, to being able to think about the future, and to being able to act even when things are uncertain. The idea is that if you can start doing things again, if you can plan your next steps, and if you can handle not knowing everything, you are truly regaining control. So how does all of this come together in practice? MTIIF proposes a 5-phase clinical structure. The first phase is all about assessment and building psychological safety. It's making sure the person feels heard and believes it's safe to start talking. Then comes phase 2, stabilization, where the focus is on calming the nervous system and building self-regulation skills, often using the REP protocol in groups. Phase 3 is where the real intervention happens, and this is where the LBP really shines. Based on the layer burden profile, the therapist then uses the right tools for the right layer. If the neurobiological layer is overloaded, perhaps EMDR or somatic work is most appropriate. If it is the identity layer, schema therapy, or self, compassion exercises would be key. If it is the social adaptive layer, CBT, or help navigating systems might be the focus. This is about a targeted, efficient approach, not just a scattergun blast of interventions. After the intense intervention phase comes phase 4, integration and RE activation. This is where the person starts to build a coherent story of their life, integrating their past experiences into their current identity. It is about rebuilding that sense of self and actively working on those RE markers: initiation, planning, and tolerance of uncertainty. Finally, phase 5 is maintenance. This is about consolidating all the progress made, developing relapse prevention strategies, and ensuring the person has ongoing support, whether through check-in sessions or community resources. Recovery isn't always a straight line, and this phase acknowledges that. Now, this framework is particularly relevant for people who have experienced forced migration. The author Valentyna Petrenko, with her own lived experience and clinical work, noticed some common patterns for forced migrants. It is typical for the neurobiological layer to be chronically overloaded due to ongoing threats like legal uncertainty. The social adaptive layer is also often heavily burdened by language barriers and navigating complex systems. This can lead to a gradual deterioration in the identity layer, as credential devaluation and role changes build shame. A really important insight from MTIIF is how post-migration conditions aren't just background noise, they are structural components of the distress. Things like legal uncertainty, not having your professional credentials recognized, or having your family separated don't just add stress. They actively maintain distress and can even undermine therapeutic progress. That is why getting help with practical things like housing or work authorization can have a disproportionately positive impact on mental health. It's like stabilizing the external storm allows the internal healing to catch up. The framework also highlights important cultural considerations, especially when working with Ukrainian populations. There is a culture of endurance where people might minimize their own struggles, so normalization and validation are critical. Collective trauma is also a significant factor where experiences are tied to national pain. And the stigma around mental health means that group formats and psychoeducation can be more effective entry points than direct referrals to individual therapy. The language itself can carry symbolic weight, so flexibility and respect for the client's identity are paramount. So what is the big takeaway here? MTIIF isn't trying to be a new fancy therapy. Instead, it is a smart way to organize the therapies we already have. It provides a clear roadmap for clinicians, helping them decide where to start, when to move forward, how to best structure group work, and how to truly measure recovery. It acknowledges that complex trauma and displacement create a multidimensional crisis, and a multidimensional approach is needed for effective healing. Of course, like any framework, MTIIF has its limits. It is primarily designed for adults with complex PTSD or significant identity disruption, especially in the context of forced migration. It hasn't been validated for children, adolescents, or those with severe substance dependence as a primary issue. It also doesn't provide specific intervention protocols, as it is meant to integrate existing ones. And importantly, the concepts like LBP threshold, governed progression, REP, and RE are theoretically grounded, but still need more empirical validation, especially across different cultural contexts. The observations were primarily from Ukrainian populations, so generalizing to other groups requires careful consideration and further research. This framework is built on a strong foundation of existing research, drawing from attachment theory, social baseline theory, interpersonal neurobiology, and established trauma therapies. It's a thoughtful integration of these ideas. For me, the most compelling aspect of MTIIF is its emphasis on context and structure. It moves beyond just treating symptoms and delves into the complex interplay of personal, social, and environmental factors. The idea that external stabilization can be a catalyst for internal healing is so crucial, especially for displaced population. And the focus on agent site ability to act and shape one's life as the ultimate measure of recovery is incredibly empowering. This framework offers a much-needed light for those navigating the darkest of times, guiding therapists and clients toward a more integrated and resilient self. What do you think about this multi-layered approach to healing? Does it resonate with your understanding of trauma and recovery? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science insights, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.